You know the story. Short man, big tree, wants to see Jesus over the crowd. Cute Sunday school image, right? Little guy climbing a sycamore just to catch a glimpse. Except, that's probably not actually why he climbed it. Zacchaeus wasn't just short. He was the chief tax collector in Jericho, which meant he wasn't just disliked. He was one of the most hated men in the entire region. Tax collectors worked for Rome, skimmed money off their own people, and got rich doing it. Zacchaeus wasn't going to casually walk into a packed, hostile crowd and ask people to let him through. That crowd would have shoved him, spat on him, blocked him on purpose. So here's the shock. Zacchaeus didn't climb that tree to get a better view. He climbed it to get away from a crowd that hated him, to watch from a safe distance where no one could touch him. And then Jesus stops, looks straight up into the branches, and calls him down by name, in front of everyone. The one place Zacchaeus thought he was hidden is exactly where he got seen. If you've ever hidden somewhere safe, hoping to just watch from a distance without being noticed, this story's about to get uncomfortably personal. Let's get into it. Here's why this actually matters, and why the cute short guy in a tree version misses the point entirely. Most of us have a version of Zacchaeus' tree, a place we climb to observe faith or church or even our own life from a safe distance, close enough to watch, far enough that we can't be confronted, judged, or asked to actually participate. We tell ourselves we're just curious, just looking, not ready to be seen yet. But this story asks a harder question than do you want to see Jesus? It asks, what happens when the thing you're hiding from actually stops, looks up, and sees you first? Zacchaeus didn't plan on an invitation. He planned on staying invisible. And the whole story turns on the fact that Jesus doesn't let him. If you only take away, wow, a tax collector got saved, you've missed the part that's actually aimed at you. The tree you've been sitting in, hoping nobody looks up. Who Zacchaeus actually was. Let's get the context straight, because it changes everything. Luke 19 tells us Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Not just any tax collector, a chief one, meaning he oversaw other tax collectors and took a cut of what they collected too. In first-century Jewish culture, tax collectors were considered traitors. They worked directly for the occupying Roman government, and it was common practice for them to overcharge and pocket the difference, legally, under Roman law. So Zacchaeus wasn't just unpopular. He was the guy actively profiting off his own people's oppression. When Luke says the crowd grumbled later, that's not casual gossip. That's a community that had genuine, justified grievances against this man. Now picture the scene realistically. Jesus is walking through Jericho with a massive crowd pressing in around him. Zacchaeus is short. Luke tells us that plainly. But shortness alone doesn't explain climbing a tree. Plenty of short people just push through crowds or ask someone to let them by. Except Zacchaeus can't do that. This is a crowd that despises him, asking people to move aside so the corrupt tax collector can get a better look at the rabbi. That's a request that gets you shoved backward, not let through. Climbing the tree wasn't about height. It was about distance. It let him watch without being touched, without making eye contact, without having to stand shoulder to shoulder with people who resented him. The tree was a hiding place disguised as a good vantage point. Here's the turn in the story. Luke says Jesus looked up, meaning Jesus wasn't scanning the crowd for him. Zacchaeus, up in the branches, should have been the last person Jesus noticed. And yet Jesus stops walking, looks directly up into that tree, and says his name. Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. Think about how exposed that moment suddenly becomes. Zacchaeus didn't identify himself. He didn't call out or wave. He was doing everything possible to stay unnoticed, and Jesus not only notices him, but names him publicly, in front of the very crowd he was hiding from. The safest place he could find became the place he got the most seen. And notice, the crowd doesn't react well. Luke tells us, all the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." This isn't a minor detail. This is the same pattern we saw in the prodigal son story. People who feel they've done things right, watching grace go to someone they believe hasn't earned it. Zacchaeus is now standing in the worst possible spot for someone trying to stay hidden. Fully visible, publicly named, and about to host the most controversial guest in town, while the very people he was avoiding watch it happen and openly disapprove. If he wanted to disappear, this moment does the exact opposite. There's no version of this scene where Zacchaeus stays comfortable and unseen. Jesus' attention forces a decision. Here's what's remarkable. Jesus doesn't lecture him, doesn't list his sins, doesn't demand repentance as a condition for the visit. He simply invites himself over. And Zacchaeus' response comes immediately, unprompted. "Look, Lord, here and now I give half my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Nobody made him say that. Being seen, genuinely, fully seen, without condemnation, is what produced that response. Notice the order of events, too. Jesus doesn't say, "Clean up your life, then I'll come to your house." He invites himself first, while Zacchaeus is still up a tree, still a chief tax collector, still exactly who the crowd hates. The change happens after he's already been welcomed, not before. Jesus' response is the thesis statement of the entire passage. Today salvation has come to this house, because this man, too, is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Read that carefully. Came to seek. Not came to wait for people to approach him. Seek. Zacchaeus thought he was the one doing the watching, safely observing from his tree. But the whole time, he was actually the one being sought. He wasn't hidden from Jesus for 1 second. The distance he thought he'd created never existed from Jesus' side of things. So here's the question underneath this whole story. Where's your tree? Maybe it's watching church or faith from a safe emotional distance. Curious, but never close enough to be asked anything real. Maybe it's showing up to conversations about God while making sure you never actually get named, called out, or invited to respond. Maybe it's staying just observant enough to feel spiritual without ever being seen clearly enough to change. This story says that distance was never actually working. The moment Zacchaeus thought he was safest is the exact moment he got called by name. And the invitation wasn't conditional. Jesus didn't wait for him to climb down and clean up first. He called him down as he was. Whatever tree you've been sitting in, hoping to just watch from a distance, this story suggests you've already been seen. The only real question left is what you do once you know that. If this story hit differently than the Sunday school version you grew up with, subscribe. Next week, we're climbing into another story hiding more than you were ever taught. See you in the next one.